It was a warm summer day by the seaside. Professor Zapnik sat quietly in a small wooden boat, gently rocking on the calm waves. The sun shone brightly as the curious little boy, Alex, leaned over the boat's edge and dipped his finger into the seawater. He tasted a drop and instantly wrinkled his nose. "This water is salty," Alex exclaimed. The salty taste took Alex by surprise, making him wrinkle his nose with a playful grimace. With wide eyes, Alex exclaimed, "Whoa, this water's really salty!" Professor Zapnik smiled. "Yes, Alex, the sea is salty, but do you know why?" Alex shook his head eagerly. "No, Professor, why?" "Let's find out why the sea is salty," said Professor Zapnik. With a twinkle in his eye, the professor pressed a button on his marvelous invention. It buzzed and blinked, then with a flash, they were whisked away traveling millions of years back in time. Alex just stared at the professor, eyes wide with wonder. He had no idea what the professor was doing, but he trusted him completely. Suddenly, the boat began to shimmer and hum. Lights flickered along its sides, and before Alex could speak, it lifted off the water, rising into the sky. Alex stood beside the professor, eyes wide with wonder. The machine sparked and shuddered, sending tiny flashes of light into the air. It let out a deep, trembling sound, like an old engine waking from sleep. Gears began to click, lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. With wide eyes, they watched the world blur and twist around them as the boat carried them millions of years into the past. Back then, Earth was a wild and fiery place. Lava flowed across the land, and volcanoes spewed smoke and gases high into the sky. Among those gases was a lot of water vapor, which slowly filled the atmosphere. Alex stood still, eyes wide with wonder and a hint of fear, hanging on the professor's every word. "The Earth is a wild, fiery place," Alex whispered in amazement. "Then, one day, or rather, over millions of years, it began to rain, and it didn't stop. The endless rain cooled the hot earth and slowly filled the land with water, creating the very first oceans. The first oceans began to form, quenching the fiery landscape and giving birth to a world of water. These early oceans weren't salty yet," the professor explained, gazing out over the vast, ancient waters. "The salt's journey began afterward," said the professor. "Rainwater ran down mountains and rocks, washing tiny mineral particles like sodium and chloride into rivers. These rivers carried the minerals straight to the oceans. When sodium and chloride met in the sea," the professor explained, "they combined to form salt. And little by little, drop by drop, the oceans grew saltier over the years. Rivers are like the Earth's veins," the professor explained. "They carry tiny bits of salt and minerals flowing steadily toward the great, wide ocean." "Wow," said Alex. "So the rocks gave the sea its salt?" Professor Zapnik nodded. "Exactly, and even today, rain keeps washing salt from the land into the sea." "But not all seas are equally salty," the professor explained. "In places with plenty of rain, the salt gets washed away and diluted. In dry places like the Dead Sea, water evaporates but leaves the salt behind, making it much saltier. And so, little by little, year by year, the sea grew saltier and saltier," said Alex, eyes sparkling with wonder. Professor Zapnik nods in agreement. "Salt is more than just a flavor," Professor said thoughtfully. "It's life itself. Countless sea creatures and plants rely on the ocean's perfect salty balance to grow and thrive." After their incredible journey through time, Alex and Professor Zapnik returned to the present. Alex looked at the waves with new eyes. "The sea doesn't just splash and roar," Alex said with a smile. "It tells stories, and the story of salt is really the story of our Earth." That day, Alex learned something amazing. Seawater is salty because rain washes salt from rocks into rivers, and rivers carry it to the sea. Over millions of years, this process made the oceans salty. A gentle smile spread across Alex's face as he looked out at the waves now, understanding the ocean's secrets a little better than before.